Did you know that that gig might be temporary, that ESPN was going to eventually look to go big name hunting, no matter how well you did?
Yes, I kind of got that sense. And look, I've been very public about this. Like, I always felt like one of my strengths is I know who I am, right? I know where I rank. It was the voice of Monday Night Football is a superstar job, right? And I just never considered myself that. I've just been one of the guys, sort of the rank and file in a great superstar spot. So, listen, I'd always hoped that would be long-term, but,
Yeah.
Joe Buck comes along, like, of course, you do have the opportunity to go out and get Joe and Troy. I totally get it. And that's why, quite frankly, I wasn't devastated when that happened. Again, it's I know where I rank and who I am, and I know what I do well, and I work really hard too. And then even I'll watch it. It sounds like they belong. It's supposed to be them, and we knew that the Super Bowl is looming. And no, I did not anticipate that. I'd hoped
Sure.
we'd gain some traction. You know what I mean? And maybe after 3 or 4 years, all of a sudden, people get used to a certain sound. And even if you don't like someone, after a while, it sounds like, they're the guys on whatever network and whatever sport. So if you can get over that hump, whatever the hump is, however many years that is. And I thought we had a chance to do that, the three of us. And then even later with Dan too. But we just didn't have, we didn't have the runway enough time, I think. But again, I'm really proud of the work that we did together in the most difficult time that, I think any broadcaster would have to go through during the pandemic. I mean, everything was different. The meetings with the coaches, the meetings with the players, the meetings with our own staff, our own crew. We didn't have one meal with Lisa Salters. Could not sit down and break bread a single time in those 2 years. So some extenuating circumstances. Look, everybody's got excuses for why it didn't work out for them, and I'm not going to be that guy either. So I just I look back at that very, very fondly, and I love watching Joe and Troy on Monday night. I mean, and they're great dudes too. Like, what are you going to do? Like, they're great dudes. I think they're already in the Hall of Fame. Even I get it.
Did you talk to Joe about it when he came to ESPN? Like, was there any sort of passing of the torch or anything like that?
Joe called me right away. Let's see. I don't want to go into this. Joe called me right away. I was in the club lounge taking my daughter on her birthday trip, so it was not ideal timing. And what he said to me was something along the lines of, hey, buddy, 3 weeks ago, this was impossible, could never happen. Because remember, at that point, Troy hadn't come over. And then Troy comes, and then it makes sense. And Joe, and he's like, hey, 3 weeks ago, this was never happening. This was impossible. And so, crazy business, all those kinds of things. And listen, he didn't have to call at all. And we're friendly. We speak, hi, bye. Want to see him on the road someplace. We text. He's a terrific guy. He's one of the best of all time at what he's doing. So I appreciate everything about him and that group. And yeah, really no regrets on this end. And that's life. I got a call from an equally famous broadcaster and who was checking on me, which I really appreciated. And I'm not going to say his name because I'm not sure he'd want me to, but he's like, hey, Steve, 99% of the people in our industry would kill for your career, meaning my career. This is after losing Monday night. And he's like, oh, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, right? I mean, the only other handful out there. So, again, I'm pretty blessed, pretty pleased.
What about being replaced by Chris Fowler as the number 2 announcer? And like, you don't have to comment on this, but I'll be honest. Fowler does a fine job.
Yeah.
I think you're better, and I think a lot of fans agree with that. But is that a job that you wanted to keep?
Yeah, that's tougher to take. I'll be honest, that was a tough one to take. And so, there are lots of conversations that go on that I'm not privy to. And at the end of the day, I'm an employee and I've got bosses and I do what I'm told. I thought whatever the 3 or 4 games we were getting on that second package, I thought that was a really nice landing spot after the 2 years I had under those circumstances. And it wasn't meant to be. And Chris is obviously a great broadcaster too. He's terrific. But listen, We got a lot of great broadcasters, you know, that are out there who haven't even gotten to the spots I've been in. And I'm sure they're saying the same thing. Well, look at Levy. I'm better than Levy. I can do this and all that. So that's our industry. It's a crazy industry. And again, I just go back to, I have to look back and say how fortunate I am to be in the spot. And I really got lucky by hockey coming back, right? I mean, you know, hockey was an all-time passion and love for me. And if not for the NHL coming back, I'm not sure I could do 5 nights of Sports Center anymore in Bristol till 2 in the morning, you know, waiting for a Giants game to finish up the 14th inning. Like, that's Sports Center's a young man's game. And you're sort of seeing that, right? Like, you know, John Anderson's going to retire this summer. Like, you know, all the guys I grew up doing the show with, that's, you know, they're moving around. And, you know, Van Pelt's a genius, and he's got his spot, that slot, and that, you know, he's king there. And so the Sports Center that I know has sort of, you know, been bounced around a little bit. And so I'm not sure I could have gone back to that. And that's why, you know, hockey at ESPN has, which is where we started this conversation, Brandon, has been so beautiful for me and my family, and what it's afforded me to do and be able to see my kids' games and get out and still do games and studio. And so it's worked out nicely.
Yeah. And people could certainly look at your career, like you said, and say that they could do a better job at something. But I will just note that you did it and you proved that you could do a good job. So it is a little bit different from that standpoint.
Thanks, man.